one of the greatest historians of all time. I mean, this is the black man who took flesh off the mummies in Kemet and proved that they had to be African based on the percentage of melanin in their skin. He was a supreme intellect and still a bunny hopper.
But the problem is that other Africans may not accept you, especially with being lighter skinned. Because you
Well,
can
that's
walk
their
into a
issue,
room.
but that ain't my issue.
Of course, it's not your issue, but
Yeah.
the point is that the African community is gonna be like, well,
Not everybody.
not everybody, but
You know?
I've heard of this a lot with a lot of communities where they're like, you're mixed, like you're not African.
No, says she's identified as a mixed race person. She don't identify as black. So you're setting yourself apart from us. And not to say that this is her mindset, but generally, when you're dealing with black people who would prefer to be called mixed race instead of black, they believe they're a little better than you.
Sisters are saying that black men experience higher levels of self-hate, and that's why they decide to go towards maybe other races because they don't really love themselves. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the self-hate is mutual. I think black men and black women, without question, share it. I think the reason why you see more bunny hopping amongst black men is because we tolerate it more.
Yeah.
It's not as acceptable for a black woman to date outside of the race. Without question, a black man who dates a non-black woman, especially if she's Caucasian, has an inferiority complex. Without question. I don't care who it is. Charles Barkley, Joel Embiid. If you're a bunny hopper, you have a racial inferiority complex. Because if the white woman is better than the black woman, the white man is better than your ass too. You can't get around it. And what they try to do is they try to heal their racial inferiority complex in that white. So when the black man penetrates the white woman, it's not just an act of sex. When he penetrates the white woman in his mind, I'm finally being accepted by my oppressor who I always wanted to want me. You see that? It's a psychological way of trying to force yourself into the group that has always rejected you. Because the black man was never allowed to have the white woman for so long, she's now his most prized possession. He believes that she is the ticket to his equality with the Caucasian.
So why do they still hold on to their culture? Like I've seen black men that are with white women, but they'll still hold on to their cultural belief system.
I know some of our greatest men who had white women. Cheikh Anta Diop of Senegal, probably the greatest African cultural anthropologist, not just African, greatest anthropologist in history, one of the greatest historians of all time. I mean, this is the black man who took flesh off the mummies in Kemet and proved that they had to be African based on the percentage of melanin in their skin. When you look at Cheikh Anta Diop's library, the books that he wrote for us, showing us who we are and where we come from, are almost unparalleled by any other scholar. He was a supreme intellect and still a bunny hopper. So do you know what that tells me?
Right.
Despite all that knowledge you had, you still had an inferiority complex in you. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, who worked with Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, Cheikh Anta Diop, Ivan Van Sertima, and Dr. Yusuf bin Yaqin, in my opinion, are probably the three greatest African historians and anthropologists we've ever had. And of course, you have others, right? Yeah. But Ivan Van Sertima had a white wife at one time. You see, so just because you know who you are, that's intellectual. Hating yourself, that's psychological. And I think too often we confuse the fact that you got knowledge of self with an assumption that you no longer hate yourself. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because if that logic is correct, every PhD in African studies, every PhD in the world in African studies would have a black wife. And we know that's not true. So simply knowing who you are does not mean you've overcome your self-hatred. You have to internalize that information. You got to internalize that cultural truth. Simply having it in your brain means nothing. Have you become it? You see, when I go to talk to our children, I need them to become it. I'm going to talk in such a way that I'm going to rip the your chest. You're going to be an African before I leave. This is not a cerebral exercise. You understand? This is psychosurgery.
Yes,
when I'm talking to black youth, I'm conducting psychosurgery. I'm going to snatch the out. You ain't gonna never go back to being who you used to be.
So it's not a preference. So a person can't have a preference in terms of what ethnicity he wants to dabble in.
In the days of the right, excellent, honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, you could not join the UNIA if you was a bunny hopper. And that was 100 years ago. You could not join Garvey if you dated outside your race.
So how about the mixed brothers that were all?
Well, they
there's lots
African
of
if
So
they
you got-
identify with the race on a full-time basis. I accept them. Mixed race Africans were no different than the rest of us on the plantation. You understand? Just because your mother got raped by the slave master didn't stop you from being sold. It didn't stop you from being whipped. And it didn't stop you from being a piece of property and not a person. So if a mixed race African says, listen, brother, my mom is white or my dad is white, but my other parent is black, I know I'm black, and I identify as black, let's keep pushing.
But if they don't look black, like there's a lot of people that are very light, very fair complexion, and
It's
they
not
don't
about
look.
it's not about the amount of melanin in your skin.
but
It's
if
the red. The first color
again,
on the flag is red. The blood makes you African.
But the problem is that other Africans may not accept you, especially with being lighter skinned, because you
well,
can
that's
walk
their
into a
issue,
room-
but that ain't my issue.
Of course, it's not your issue, but
Yeah.
the point is that the African community is gonna be like, well,
Not
I don't-
everybody.
not everybody, but
You know?
I've heard of this a lot with a lot of communities where they're like, you're mixed, like you're not African.
No, there
like, you know
are
what I
blacks
mean?
who will reject mixed race
100%.
Africans. That's true.
100%.
You know, just like you got black folks who don't like light skin, and you got light skin who don't like dark skin. So it's
yeah.
just an issue of light skin and dark skin
Colorism
supremacy.
type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
But for me, and for what I stand for, and for all the Pan-Africanists who come before me, we do not separate out mixed race Africans if they identify on a full-time basis. For example, Sister Amber Rose, and y'all know who Amber Rose is.
Yeah.
She and I was having a conversation, and I said I needed some clarity on how do you identify. Do you consider yourself black first, right? Because you know, her parents was what's the island off the coast of off near Senegal?
Cape Verde.
Cape Verde. So she's Cape Verdean, right? And they tend to be more light. So I needed to know. And she says she's identified as a mixed race person. She don't identify as black. So you're setting yourself apart from us. And not to say that this is her mindset, but generally, when you're dealing with black people who would prefer to be called mixed race instead of black, they believe they're a little better than you. You can't be white because white people are never going to accept you as white. But you still want the privileges that might come to you from having a little bit of white blood, even though you'll never be. What's the purpose of being mixed race if you can't be white? Because I don't want to be considered black. And so when someone says I'm mixed race, then you're letting me know I don't identify with you, and therefore I don't identify with you. You understand? But if you full-time African as a mixed race brother or sister, I will accept you with no issues. I ain't got no light skin problems. If I show you my father's side of the family, I'll show you a picture of my grandma. You might think she a white woman. We got green-eyed bandits. You understand? We got hazel-eyed bandits. We got pale-skinned black. And these are black folks with no white parents. No white parents. But that slave master blood was so strong that you popped out super light. You understand me? So,
100%.
you know, one of the things I'm so thankful for, because I meet Africans who are traumatized by the skin color worship in their families. I know dark-skinned people who were so abused by light-skinned people they can't stand to be around one. I know light-skinned people who've been picked on so much by dark-skinned Africans they can't stand to be around them. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like they walk in a room and it's just tension. Y'all don't even y'all ain't even meet. It don't matter. He dark or she light. You understand me? So one of the things I'm so thankful for in my life, because even though I'm a darker-skinned brother, and even though I did see light-skin supremacy in my family on both sides, it never affected me. And I'm so thankful for that, because I would be a hypocrite as a Pan-Africanist to say I want unity for all African people when I'm still holding some type of discriminatory attitude towards the lights or the darks. And I think one of the reasons why I am so popular amongst the Pan-Africanists even is because I embraced all. When people come around me, they can feel I'm genuine. You understand? When there's nothing like a mixed race African coming up to me at the end of the lecture and say, "Thank you, Doc, for letting me know that I'm African, because I always felt I was, but nobody never validated me until I met you." You understand? So again, I'm all about psychosurgery. I salute you. I appreciate what you did, taking the knee. You sacrificed your career for the respect and integrity and safety of our people. But Brother Colin Kaepernick, I'm getting reports, my brother, that you have been snow bunny. Can somebody confirm if our brother Colin Kaepernick, has been bunnied? I heard that you have been seen with the sand bunny or a rice bunny. Colin Kaepernick, my dear brother, have you been bunnied?